Hi guys, welcome back to part 2 of session 69. Previous session what we did was we actually consumed the live news and displayed it on our application. Similarly, now what I'm gonna do in this session is that I want to consume another endpoint. So this particular endpoint which I want to consume would be everything. In previous session, I consumed the headlines, top headlines, and now I want to consume another endpoint from this external API, that is everything. So once again, if you look at the way how we consume it, you can notice that there is a query that can be passed into this particular API. Fine. So that means whatever you want to search, that can be searched. Fine. So let us try and consume this particular API. Okay, so this is the URL, and I'll just go back to the application that I was working on. So if you remember, we have created this API key and everything. So I'll get that URL first here and then let's call it as search news. Okay, so search news is something which I want to consume, and the search news takes a query, so which is of type string. So I'll say query string, and this is the URL that we have taken from there. So I'll just take that URL and put it here. Fine. And let's just apply the backticks here. All right, so looks good. Now what I'm gonna do is I'll replace this API key with the API key that I got by signing up to the API. So you can go to that website and sign up and you get the API key. I'll copy this API key and put the API key here. All done. Fine. So then now it is searching for the bitcoins. I'll search for something like let's say uh, anything that includes India. That's what I want to search for, or anything else you want. Whatever you want to search, you can search it here. Like you want to search for Virat, then you can search for Virat. Fine. So that way I want to perform a search there. Fine. So let's save it, and I want to consume this now. So when I want to consume this in this application, what I will do is, in the previous session I have already consumed the get headlines, right? So in the same method itself I'm gonna consume that instead of creating a new. Okay, so instead of this get news headlines, what I'm gonna do is I'll just change this to yeah, get news. Instead of the headlines, I will go for the search news. Okay, rest all thing remains the same itself, so I'm gonna go for the search news, and it requires some query string which is not in use as of now. So I'll just test it whether things work fine or not. So I save it, and I want to now check my API gives me the result that is related to Virat Kohli or not. So you can see that any news that has the keyword Virat will be shown to me. Fine. So this way I can even consume the search API. Fine. So now heading forward, what I'm gonna do now is that I will allow the user to enter that search text. See, in this example we did consume it, but the thing is that nobody is gonna come to our service and then provide us the keyword here, right? So this type of data will actually be taken from what? It should be a search keyword, right? So this is something which we used to do before. So let's try that. See, we can pass the path parameter here. So let's save it, and the path parameter now has to be passed from the TypeScript, and we know that we can perform binding and pass in the path parameter here. So I will take a search text equals to an empty text as for now. Okay, and that is the search text which I want to pass in here, and the same search text will be provided by the user here at the runtime. Okay, and what I will now have is I will have input type of text, and let's perform an ng model, that means two-way data model, two-way data binding. Ng model is equal to search text. Fine. So if somebody gives in the search news here, then that function has to be called. Okay, so what I will do now is that function which I am calling in the moment the application is loaded, what I will do is I can have two functions in this now. So one is the headlines, next one is to search. Fine. So the moment the page is displayed, headlines can be displayed. If a user wants to search something, user can search that. Okay, so that way also we can implement these things. So what I will do is I'll have another function here, the same get news. I'm gonna copy it, I'll paste it once again, and here I will write get headlines. Okay, and instead of this search news, I'll call this as get headlines itself, which does not take any argument. So this is something which has to be loaded the moment I perform an ng only in it. So get headlines has to happen, and the get news should be called on change of the search text. If search text is provided, then the details has to be given. So let's go here to the HTML part, and let's go for on change of this. Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's go for the change here. Okay, once something is changed in the text box, then call the uh, get news function. Okay, so let's save it, and now let's go to the browser. So you can see that there is something called as search news. I can provide in the placeholder if I wish to. Now let's type in something like Virat Kohli and hit enter there, or we can create a button, search button, and then take the details as well. On change, every time it is calling the external API, so obviously that's gonna be a bit slow. So what I will do is instead of creating an on change here, I will create a button that will not call the API again and again. Upon click of this button, so the get news has to be called search. Okay, let's save it, and yeah, once that is happening in the search in the get news, first of all what I will do is I will just remove off everything that's there in the articles. So this dot articles, I'll just clean up everything in the articles. This dot articles will be equal to an empty array. The moment a user searches for that, headlines should be gone and this detail should come up. Okay, so I'm searching for something and I click on that button, I get all the news that is related to Virat Kohli only. Fine, so that way you can integrate your search news as well in your API. So if you remember in the previous session itself, I have told you how are we going to consume the news based on the category. So first thing what we did was we retrieved the headlines. Second was we searched the news, and lastly we can even get the headlines and change the category to sports or anything, sports, science, entertainment, business, anything. So what we can do is I will give you one assignment. What you can do is simply go ahead and create a page where you have the headlines. One component will display these headlines, and within that headlines itself you can have a search. Okay, let the user search the detail, and similarly what you can have is a business component, you can have a sports component, right? And if a user clicks a user starts your application, he comes to the headlines, he can search for the news. If he wants business news, he can click on the business component, can navigate to business news. Likewise, he can navigate to sports news and other categories as well. So I encourage you to create more components and also perform routing for completing this entire API. That will be fun for you. Fine. So I've already shown you how do you consume these endpoints. I encourage you to change the category to business category and consume it. Just a hint I am giving you. So you can see that you can read about the things. This is about the everything, and the previous one was about the headlines, and it is there in the headlines, and then the category has to be changed. You can notice that I have given a country here. You can give the category there. Fine. So that way you should be able to search for the news based on the category. So you perform that and also include the routing and everything, so that it becomes easy for you to consume things like this. Fine. So similarly, now what I will do is I'll show you a more uh, another API that I will consume. Okay, so which is gonna be my apininjas.com. So that is something which I am thinking of consuming. So let's see what is that API Ninja. Okay, so this is this apininjas.com. So you can see it here on this API Ninjas. I have some of the endpoints created here. API documentation. Let's see what all APIs are there. So you can see that commodity price, interest rate, nutrition, and the quotes, who is, and Bitcoin. So these are all the APIs that are available on this API Ninja. One of again and a website where you find the group of APIs. So my concern is about this nutrition API that actually retrieves us the nutrition value of the product that we enter. Like for example, you can see that there is a query here. I would like to enter 2 apples. Fine. So I want to search that. I will send the request and it will show me what is the nutrition value of the apple, right? So calories, serving size, fats, and the protein, sodium, and all that. So some of the features are available only for the premium subscriber. Since I am a free user, I'll not be having these two features available here. How much sugar it has, how much fiber it has. So all that nutrition values are displayed to us. Fine. So this is something which I want to consume into my application. So let us see how are we going to consume this thing here. And you can also see that there is something called as headers here, which is XAPI key. Okay. So I'll copy this URL first, and then I will first go to the Postman to check whether the API responds me the data or not. Fine. So that is the first thing that we do every time, right? So for the news also, we did the same. Okay, so now I will just remove this part from here, the news API, and paste the URL that I got from there. So this is the URL that is required here. So it is the only URL. If you can see it here, that's the URL. It takes the method get the URL, and then that's it. The query has to be provided. So this API key is not appended here. You don't provide an API key with this. So you can see that here. Even if I pass in an API key, it will not take it here. Why is that? That's because the headers has to be passed to this. Now what are the headers? HTTP headers. Your APIs can request the headers to you, and this query is actually a parameter. So you can see that the parameter I am passing to apples, but header has to be passed in. So you can see that on an API itself it is telling you the header XAPI key has to be passed. Fine. So that thing has to be given here for a header. So now I come down to the header. If you remember, in the body also we used to pass when we were performing a post operation. Now in the get operation, this API requires a header. If I just send it without a header, obviously it is going to tell me that it is a bad request. You can see that it is missing an API key. An API key cannot be passed in with the URL like we did in our previous example. Here an API key has to be passed as a URL to this. So what is the key? The key is XAPI key is something that it requires, right? So we have to pass in the XAPI key, and then the value of that API key has to be given. So you can sign up to API Ninjas, and from there you can get the API key. So I'm just pasting the API key that I retrieved from there, and now I send it, and now you can notice that I'm getting the response from the API. So let us now learn why am I consuming this API is because I want to teach you how are you going to pass in the HTTP headers when you are consuming APIs like this. Some APIs might request you to pass in the headers, some might request you to pass in the parameters, some might request you to pass in the API key directly here, right? So in the previous example we have provided the API key directly with the URL, but here it requires a extra HTTP header has to be passed in. So let us see how are we going to consume it. So before I consume it, I'm gonna share this code with you where I actually consume the search news as well. So I'll share you the service first. So let's go here, and there we go. So this is our demo to search news. Okay, so this is where we are taking the search news. The above one is the service, then the HTML. These are the only three files. In fact, in HTML I have just added the search, right? And then the TypeScript. So by now I know that you already know which class is a service class, which class is a TypeScript, what code has to be written on TypeScript, what code has to be written on service, right? So I'm giving you all those three things. This is just a continuation of the previous things that we have done in the previous session. Now let's consume the last API, that's gonna be the API Ninja nutrition values of the products. So I'll go back to my application. Once again, what I will do is in the app.typescript, I'll clean up everything that I am consuming from that service, and also the get headlines I will remove from here. Articles also are not required for me now, and yeah, I might keep a search text where we will be providing the key later, and then yeah, later we will consume this headlines and everything. Okay, whatever it is, we will consume it later. So let's go to the service first and finish off our service functionality, and from there we can perform the other thing. So I will remove this headlines and all, it is not required now. Yeah, looks good. So we have already have the HTTP client. Let's call it as the calories ninja API, right? So let's call it as the calories API, and from here I will consume the URL which we have. So let's go for a return HTTP dot the get method, and the get method with the URL, right? So let's pass in the URL that we have taken from there. So this is the URL. Once again, I'll take backticks. This is the URL, and instead of this query, I should be providing the query like this, right? And this API requires a query of type string again. Fine. So query string looks good, but then we know that this API requires a HTTP headers are required here. The key is XAPI key and the value which we have retrieved. So that has to be provided. So here I'm going to provide that. So let's see how we are going to do that. Let's create a headers, and then we will take new HTTP header. Okay, so HTTP headers has to be taken, and the value needs to be set here, HTTP headers dot set. So what it takes a key and the value. So what key has to be provided? This is the key that it requires, right? XAPI key is the key that it requires. So I'll be taking this key here. I'll provide that key, and then the second one is the value. So the value has to be provided here. So I know that this is the value that I have retrieved from the API. So here is your API key. So I took the key and the value I have provided, and lastly we have to pass that with the URL here. So what you can simply do is, once your URL ends, now the second argument to this get method is about the HTTP headers. You can see takes options, headers and all that. Fine. So I'm gonna provide the headers here. Headers is nothing but the local variable that I have created here. Okay, so let's save it now, and I want to now consume this at the end here. So instead of this get headlines and all, let's just call this as what, get calories or something. Okay, and that way we will be able to retrieve this. Okay, so let's call this as get calories, and instead of this get headlines, I have taken the calorie or something there, right? Calories API or something. Let me check what I have given. Calorie API query string. Yes, that's correct. So calorie API, it takes a query string. So let's pass in the search text itself here, and we can subscribe to it. And then once we subscribe to it, what I will do is I will just as for now I did not create any model and everything, so I'll just print the data here on a console. Okay, later you can display it any way you want. Okay, so on a console, then detect the changes. If there is an error, just print me that error, and the on in it, just get the calories. Okay, let's save it. And the other methods, I'll just completely remove this method as it is not required for me now. So the get news I will remove, and on HTML page I will just have this thing, and rest all thing I'll just remove it. Okay, so yes, and instead of get news, let's call the get calories. Okay, let's save it now. Let's save everything. In fact, save all. So it should look fine now. Let's go to the API. Yeah, one more thing is that on an ng on init, I don't need to do that, right? So it requires a query string. So in an ng on init, let's not do this. Let's save it. Let the user type this, and then only we will get the data there. So let's go to our application here. Inspect. Nothing should be shown on console as for now. So nothing is there on the console. And now let us search for what are the calorie values in 2 boiled eggs. Fine, let's search for it, and it should give you the result. Now you can see that an API has given you the result, so you can see the details as what all it is giving you. It is giving you the calorie are available for the premium user. That's fine. It is giving you how much carbohydrates this 2x contains, what is the cholesterol, saturated fat, then total fat, fiber, and the name that you have searched, potassium, and all that. So this way you can get this data, and obviously once you get this data, you can even display this data on your uh, what you say on your HTML page as well. Fine. So you can create a model, you can provide that model here, and then that way you can get the details and display it. So those things I have already shown you in the previous session itself, right? So here if I do a data dot, let me just go for a console dot log. So you can see that a data that was retrieved to me was simply an object, right? So which is an array is being returned, and it is always array of 0, right? So we can say data of 0 dot anything that you want from here, you can retrieve it that way. So data of 0, let me just take what maybe uh, fiber value, or maybe I'll take just the name and also the sugar. Later you can think of the other things. So data of 0 dot name. Okay, let's check what is there. The element implicitly has any type, because expression of type 0 cannot be used. Index type. Okay, that's fine for me. uh, it is going to return me data of 0, and here it is telling me it does not allow me to store it that way. And let's create let my data equals to the data. Okay, now my data, before that let me just create my data of type any array, because the API is returning me array, right? So let's say my data equals to the data, and the data is gonna be retrieved to us as a array. So let's give it any type of array it is going to return us. Let's come down here, that will be fine now. So now I will do a console dot log, and my data of 0 dot now I can get the sugar value, and other things were there, right? Sugar underscore g, that's the property name, and that is what I want to print. And let's not print the entire, yeah, let us print the entire detail, and after that I will just have a console dot log how to retrieve the values, right? This is how you get the values. Okay, so let me just save it now. Let's go here, and let's type in something, maybe two uh, boiled eggs. So let's search for it. Now once we search, we get the data. So you can see that this is the sugar value that I am retrieving from there, and there we go, this is the data. Fine. So instead of just displaying it here, I can display it on my uh, HTML page as well, right? Right. So that's again easy thing. So whatever you want to retrieve, you create the model for it. In this case, I'm not creating the model, I'm just creating the variable. So I'll create it as what? Sugar value equals to an empty data, and this retrieval, instead of just printing it, I'm just gonna take it as the sugar value equal to. So let's call it as this dot sugar value equal to, and that is the same thing I want to bind on the HTML. So once we get that, I'll say sugar value sugar equals to is something I'll write here. So let's save it, and there we go. Now whatever you display, you can put in an ng if you don't, if you want this sugar value and everything to be displayed only after clicking on search button, that we have already done in the previous sessions. So let's now search for what? 10x search. So once we search the data, I should be able to get this. Change detect has to be also written there. So we get this 1.9 now. So you can get that from here as well. Fine. So that way we should be able to retrieve the data 1.9. Fine. So this is how you consume an API that also requires the API keys or the headers as the argument. So you can see that I have provided it that way. So I'll share you this as well, and we will be done consuming the external APIs. While consuming the external APIs, we should ensure that we have read the APIs properly. Okay, providing HTTP headers. So here is my service. It will not give the API key because this API key obviously will exhaust. So I'll write it as your API key. So you sign up to this particular URL, this API Ninjas, and from there you can consume any of the API of your choice. Okay, then I have the app.typescript and then the HTML. And also we can ask our chat GPT to provide us a better look and feel of these things, right? So now that I will commit it, and then you can now practice about these APIs. So whichever API you like, you can go to the nutrition API or any API in the API Ninjas. So from here in the API Ninjas, you have a lot of APIs in there, right? So if I just go for the Ninja API Ninja, you can see that the APIs are a lot. So whichever API you want to consume, you can get that API. You sign up to this, and then you can do anything of your choice. You can bring in the details of a gold price and display it in your application. You can create an application that calculates income tax, everything that you like. You can see that here so many APIs are there, right? So that way you can provide in the things. You can just consume this and make your application better. And also what you can do is, just by using Angular application, you get the live data and you can create a mini project for your colleges and show it to your uh, to your guides and everything. So it will be this much easy, rather than just wasting your money by purchasing the projects from others. What you can simply do is, you can watch these videos and then consume any of the API of your choice. Live data can be shown into your application. Once you show the live data in your applications, your guides will be impressed with you. So that's my time in this particular session. If you're liking in the series, do comment on the videos, and also share and subscribe to my channel. That encourages me to create more such contents for you. Thank you. See you in the next session.